Good evening, everyone. This is Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. And if it is Wednesday night, it is definitely Black Men Speak Wednesday, March the 12th, 2025. And we definitely hope that you guys are all having a great week. As you know, and as you can see, obviously, it is just me for tonight. And I am hoping and expecting Jimmy that will we be jumping on very soon. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the show and hope that you all have been having a fantastic week. And off the top of the show, we, of course, are going to have to acknowledge a couple of ancestors again this week. And, it seems like every week we are continuing to acknowledge a couple of giants. And this week is definitely no different. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the show. And we'll expect Jimmy to hopefully jump in momentarily. First, for those of you who are in the music business, you will probably know this face, especially if you're in old school. Mr. Roy Ayers, a vibraphonist, composer, and jazz funk pioneer behind Everybody Loves Sunshine, became an ancestor on March the 4th at the age of 84 years old. Ayers was born in Los Angeles on September the 10th, 1940, into a musically inclined family. While he cut his teeth on the 1960s hard bop scene of LA, Ayers developed his signature sound with his 1970 album Ubiquity. But it was the 1976 release of Everybody Loves the Sunshine that put him on the map, literally put him on the map, which became a staple of his live set for decades to come. The album's title track has been sampled over 100 times. The Lifeline continued through sampling, in addition to studio collaborations with a new generation of R&B and hip hop musicians like Alicia Keys, The Roots, Gangstar, and Tyler the Creator. Roy Ayers appeared on Erykah Badu's 2000 album Mama's Gone. Badu, after which called Ayers the literal king of neo soul. So, with that being said, folks, what's going on, Jimmy?
Hey, sorry I'm late.
I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Make
I'm
sure.
going to do this. As we transition, I may end up having to go to a different screen because, for whatever reason, it's everything is on mute. But with all of that being said, to give our kudos to the family, friend, and loved ones of the inimical Roy Ayers. And Jimmy, if you can
Yes,
hear me, you can hear me, yes or no?
yes.
Okay, good deal. Well, let me go ahead and go into our next two honorees into the realm of ancestorhood, and then we will make a transition and then get to the stories of the show tonight. For
Okay.
those of you who are R&B and hip hop lovers, you probably knew that Dwayne Wiggins, one of the founding members of the Grammy-nominated group Tony, who performed the 1990s classic Anniversary,
One
It
of my
Never
favorite songs.
Rains in
I love
Southern
that.
California, and Lay Your Head on My Pillow, has become an ancestor at the age of 64, just a couple of days on March the 7th. Wiggins succumbed after battling bladder cancer. He was a vocalist and a bass guitarist, which included his brother Raphael Sadiq, the lead singer, and cousin Christian Riley. The group became mainstays of the new Jack Swing movement, blending R&B, jazz, and traces of gospel melodies. But it was their 1990 New Jack Swing infused Feel Good record that really earned them commercial success, peaking at number 9 on the Billboard's Hot 100 chart. They released two more studio projects together with party hits like Let's Get Down. The blood relatives could not predict, however, their success would actually affect their relationship. The Tonys went their separate ways after their fourth album, a 1996 platinum selling House of Music. Fame, finance, miscommunication, and creative differences unfortunately became unsustainable for the group. Wiggins and Riley toured under the group's name between 1998 and 2018, with Amar Khalil taking over lead singing duties. Ultimately, though, it was Sadiq's effort, the lead singer. The group made amends and reunited for a tour in 2023. It was the first road trip featuring the three original members in nearly 30 years.
Ouch.
So we definitely want to give our condolences to the family, friends, loved ones, and those who, of course, followed the three Tonys. And last but definitely not least, we have another giant that we have lost. And actually, I was hoping to honor him this week because he is one of the billionaires, from what we found out, that we now have just lost, unfortunately. Junior Bridgman, a basketball standout who led the Louisville Cardinals to a Final Four, starred for the NBA's Milwaukee Bucks, and then launched an even more successful career as a businessman with stakes in restaurants, publishing, and the Bucks franchise, being the Milwaukee Bucks franchise, became an ancestor on March the 11th, just yesterday, at the age of 71. Bridgman reportedly suffered a medical emergency at a Louisville hotel during a fundraising event. A native of East Chicago, Indiana, he played for the Hall of Fame coach Denny Crum at Louisville. In 3 seasons, he scored 1,348 points, grabbed 657 rebounds, and in his senior season, led the Cardinals to the 1975 Final Four. Bridgman was involved in one of the biggest trades in NBA history at the start of his professional career. After the LA Lakers selected Bridgman with the 8th pick in the 1975 draft, he sent him to Milwaukee as a part of a trade that ended up bringing the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the West Coast to the Lakers.
Okay.
The Bucks announced recently that Bridgman had bought a stake in the team last year at a news conference that included co-owner Jimmy Haslam, coach Doc Rivers, and general manager John Horst. Bridgman was a longtime franchisee for Wendy's and the Chili's franchises, at one time operating more than 450 locations in 20 states. He became a bottler for Coca-Cola and bought Ebony and Jet magazines. Bridgman was part of an investment group that owns Valhalla Golf Club in Louisville, Kentucky. He also served on the board of Churchill Downs Racetrack, the University of Louisville, and Fifth Third Bank, among others. He and his wife, Doris, hosted Kentucky Derby parties that served as a fundraiser annually. Besides his wife, he is survived by children Eden, Justin, and Ryan. Definitely send our condolences to the Bridgman family, the sports family, and those who knew and loved him well. And given that it's going to probably be pretty difficult for us to negotiate without us being able to hear, or at least me being able to hear Jimmy, what I'm going to
Well, I'll tell you what.
is I'm going to jump off momentarily and jump back on because I cannot hear anyone, including Jimmy, right now. So I'm going to let Jimmy carry the show for a couple of minutes. We have a couple of stories that we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about tonight and get some thoughts on. One is an interesting story of a Zimbabwean inventor who could literally disrupt the world given the implications of what he's doing in the self-powering technology that could drive cars, that could generate power for cars, motorcycles, and other technology. Also, we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but some of you are probably aware that, of course, there is an economic boycott of Target that has been on call for Atlanta pastor, mega pastor Jamal Bryant. And then if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about a interesting article we just found about the USDA that is cutting, it looks like around $1 billion from the food bank and school programs that provides food to those who are in need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump off Jimmy, jump back on hopefully within a couple of minutes, and then we can continue with the stories. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be back in just a moment.
Okay. Looks like we're going to fly solo for a couple of minutes. I apologize for the unprofessionalism of being late. I overslept. That's no excuse. But I haven't been feeling well the last 2 days. Been very lightheaded and fuzzy thinking. So when I come and do the show, I try to bring my best, my A game to the show to be a clear thinker. And believe it or not, I had a decent meal. I cooked some rice casserole and finally had a decent meal for the first time in 2 days. And that made a difference. I do feel a lot better now. I probably will go back to sleep, get some rest after the show is over. But anyway, the stories we have tonight, very fascinating story. Young engineer, inventor out of Africa. I don't think he's been formally trained or went to any university for engineering, but he's thinking the right way. He's created a device he called a sonic device. Hey, Tom, can you hear me now?
I can hear you clearly. And this is
I'm glad, man. So now that you're back, rather than me jumping ahead into the stories, why don't we just go ahead and pick up with our first story, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, good deal. Now, where were we at, or where are we starting? We had a couple.
Well, I was talking with the young inventor in Africa, man who made with his sonic power device, and I was getting ready to say that his thinking is not. I mean, there's nothing new about what he's thinking. Tesla had the same thoughts of having free energy through the air, that we would just put an antenna up and grab energy, all the energy that we needed. And basically, this would come from radio waves. So there is a small amount of energy being transmitted in the air through the radio. So if you have a radio, if you live somewhere where that's pretty much the entire world. There's no place pretty much in the world where you can't get a radio signal, except maybe Antarctica, who knows. But for most of the world, Tom, there's a small amount of energy being transmitted, and all he's done is taken that energy and amplified it. We know it's a small amount, so he amplified it really high. And I hope for his sake and for Zimbabwe's sake that either his device works or works well enough to put him on the right track to continue the research.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting in terms of the use cases for this. They were talking about what we call self-powered cars, motorcycles. There are a lot of different use case applications for something like this, if it can get it for commercial use. But I thought the interesting thing about it is if it did become commercially acceptable, given the implications of this could disrupt a lot of different industries and piss off a lot of different people who, of course, want to make.
Tom, we're talking about trillions of dollars at stake here if this works. So here's the problem: is that the U.S. and most Western powers, when I give you a patent for what they call a power generation machine, and unfortunately, he hadn't been able to get a patent for his device.
I wonder why, Jimmy.
Well, it's not just him, Tom. It's others who had similar devices along the ages who were not able to get a patent for it either. So, only because the patent office feels that these devices break the laws of energy, thermal energy, that energy is not created or destroyed, it's simply transformed. And so taking energy out of the air that doesn't really exist and creating energy is the way they look at it. So nobody's going to give them a patent for creating a device that amplifies energy out of the air that's not supposed to be there. And because of that, he's not able to get a patent. And that's what's been a holdup because he can't protect his invention. And so now the thinking is they'll go ahead and put it into a car, but they're going to do the absolute best, Tom, that if you tinker with it, it will self-sabotage. It's not going to blow up or anything, but it would just stop working in a way that you won't be able to reverse engineer it. That's the concern, is that car companies will come without a patent, will come along and just reverse engineer it.
Exactly.
And lock you out of it. You won't get a penny of it, and they will continue to move forward. And so that's the dilemma the young man is in.
But I think it's a brilliant design. I think obviously, everything has to be refined. Of course, when you think of, and I'm not saying that it could be something that could be used in people's households and things of that nature to power.
Can be used in a household.
But imagine the implications for the mammoth multi-billion-dollar companies that are saying we cannot allow this to become commercially available for all of these different use cases. Because do you know how much money that is taking out of companies that are generating billions and billions of dollars?
Well, Tom, especially for a device that can fit into any car, can be retrofitted for any combustible engine car, and replace the combustible engine with electric engine, and add this device to it. What that would mean for the oil company? I mean, their oil production would drop down to almost nothing overnight if that was the case, and that would set the downfall for that whole industry. And we know how lucrative that industry is.
But Jimmy, I mean, for what it's worth, if we look throughout history, technology, innovation, and new industries are built supposedly on efficiency and the ability to be able to make things easier and faster for people to use, whether that's transportation, whether that's communication. So what's wrong with having and being able to refine something that can literally generate power, power for an unlimited number of use cases? Eventually, I mean, nobody's using a horse and buggy anymore.
Yeah, Tom, except the way the Western world thinks is that you have to have an energy source to start with that's greater than the energy that comes out. So, for instance, when you fill your car up, the gasoline inside your car and inside the tank can produce so much energy. There's a quantum amount of energy it can produce. The output has to be between the potential energy, the kinetic energy, the heat that's generated by your car. All those energy sources have to combine at least equal what you put in, minus a small amount that's lost in the conversion process. So, and if your device works any different, you put a gallon of gas in your car, and you say, "Hey, I can run this car for 1,000 miles, no padding." You put water in your car. I mean, even with the hydrogen engine, this was a point of contention for a very long time when people were saying, "Hey, I can run my car off of water." And the patent office said, no, you can't because there's not enough energy inside water to get enough usable energy out of it in order to run a car. We know that's wrong now, that there are hydrogen cars that do run off
Correct.
of water, that once the electrolysis is done, that the output is water. Take hydrogen, take charging the batteries, but then once it's all done, Tom, the only thing that comes out of the tailpipe is just pure water. So, but Western patent offices, mainly Europe and America, still have rejected his claim. He's tried many, even out east, to try to get a patent, and nobody give it to him. They won't even examine the product, Tom, to really see if it'll work. I mean, there have been a few institutions, I think one university, that have done some tests on it, said, yeah, it does work, but, there's always the big but.
Well, it's I think, but until we can figure out how to make money off of
Well,
it,
they know how
because
to
you
make
know,
money
God
off of it,
forbid,
Tom. The but may just be when we go to Exxon Mobil, we go to other oil companies, energy producing oil companies, or we go to those Saudi Arabia and say, hey, how much money are you willing to pony up to keep this device off the market?
and or God, and I hate to say this, Jimmy, but we've had folks who have been a lot less disruptive who end up disappearing.
That is the other
Um,
thing, Tom, is that it's not just a few. Everybody who comes up with some kind of similar device that either produces more energy than it seems like it takes in, um, somehow they always end up either disappearing, Tom, or dying under mysterious circumstances. So I hope this young man stays safe because certainly the easiest thing would be for the power that be would be to make him disappear.
Interesting assessment, and I unfortunately agree with you, Jimmy. Anything that is good for the masses usually, unfortunately, is not sustainable. But you know what? As we've learned throughout history, everything was impossible until it was
Right,
possible.
that is true. Yeah, everything is possible
It was
until it was impossible until it
it,
became possible.
it was impossible to fly until you could fly. It was impossible for the Earth to be nothing but flat until we determined it was round. Jimmy, we
The thing
know.
with that is that when we developed how to fly, it didn't take long from the 1920s Wright brothers to where we are now, over 100 years to be putting a person in space and land on another planet. And all the innovation that's come with the airline industry since then is huge. But people found a way to commercialize it, Tom. This is
Exactly.
not going to
They
get off
have to
the
be, they have
ground.
to be able to make billions off of it for it to be
So
viable.
his invention will not get off the ground until the world figure out how to commercialize it, Tom, how to monetize it,
How to make
how
billions
they
off
can
of it.
tap into it and not be locked out because something like this, if you only have African countries making the device, putting it in cars, and you can't reverse engineer it, yeah, Tom, it's going to create a problem.
Well, my thing is this, Jimmy. We've talked about this a couple of times, and I want to reach out to our folks on the chat line and so on and so forth about this. We've talked not ad nauseum, but several times about the energy problem on the continent of Africa. The wealthiest landmass in the world that practically every country depends on, especially the European countries, which at the same time is the poorest country in the world in terms of per capita development, in terms of the human capital, and in terms of their net worth. But again, we've also talked about the fact before energy become commercially available, we knew that there were literally discoveries on the African continent where energy was actually created underground for free. It wasn't a commercially available resource, but there was actually blueprints and diagrams where energy was available to people for free. With this being said, why could this not be an answer to the energy
Well,
problem on
Tom's a
the
huge
African
answer
continent?
for it. But once again, you have the oil industry, which is easily worth on a global scale trillions upon trillions of dollars each year. The number of jobs that are created, Tom, the taxes that are created for every sale, every gallon of gasoline sold and collected by local governments, state governments, federal governments. Huge amount of money involved, Tom, in moving people around and keeping things. The airline industry, home heating, all the petroleum products that are created, plastics. So it's not just the extracting of gasoline from a barrel of oil. It's all the other products. I didn't realize at the time we even make food additives out of oil until the RFK came
Food
along.
additives.
Yeah, start talking about these red dyes, these different colored dyes they want to get removed from the food industry. It's like, why? Well, it's because it's made out of petroleum. It's like we've been eating petroleum all this time. This is why Europeans and the Asians don't take American food. You're laughing, but it's true. It's like they don't take American food because we have so many damn chemicals. Who knew that we were eating petroleum all this damn time? So this is one of the things RFK is trying to stop. But the point is, Tom, is that the energy industry and all the byproducts that come from it is huge. You stop that production, countries have gone to war over oil, Tom. We can say what we want to say, but the conflict in the Middle East,
We were one of
yeah,
them.
we've been one of them. The Middle East conflict has been really secretly over oil, even though nobody wants to admit it. But you have a huge supply of oil there. But now, what would happen to the Saudis, Dubai, and United Emirates, and all those very rich oil-producing countries if oil became damn near worthless tomorrow?
We would come up with something else. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the evolution of mankind. I mean, nobody's using fire literally to cook things anymore.
So if this young man's device will really work, Tom, which it does, or if it works somewhat the way it's supposed to,
He's gonna need some. He's gonna need a lot of protection, Jimmy.
yes, it is. I'm not sure Zimbabwe can offer enough for what he's going to face, but the world will literally turn against Zimbabwe and him to get rid of this device, and then they'll discredit it and say, "Oh, it was a fraud and he was a fraudster." So, the
That's. I would agree with you because unlike the United States, the African continent does not have a unified military force to protect itself, and unfortunately, since as we've talked about before, so many countries depend on the Western so-called powers to protect them, that they cannot protect themselves. That's just facts, people.
That is just facts.
Gotcha. All right, we got a couple of folks on the chat line I want to acknowledge. We got cousin Audrey K on the line. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. We got Miss Carol. Yeah, Roy Ayers was definitely a musical giant. So yeah, Miss Carol was a Roy Ayers fan. We've got Brother Frederick V. Roberts. Good evening, and thank you from Prairie View, Texas. Thank you for joining us this evening, Miss Carol. Can you provide some substantiation of these people disappearing? I can provide you some substantiation on people dying. One of them was a brother who was literally about to Dr. Sebi. I'm pretty sure you probably heard of Dr. Sebi. Somehow got jailed. I guess it's been maybe at least 4 some odd years ago right now, but could literally have disrupted the healthcare industry with his innovation in terms of making people healthy. He literally proved in court that he was able to cure AIDS, and yeah, they had to get rid of him. So he didn't just disappear; he died.
Well, I tell you what, Miss Carol will come back next week. Then I will post a link. There is a YouTube channel called the Y Files WF channel, and they have did a whole segment on these inventors who've all disappeared mysteriously. Tom, there's one thing when you die mysteriously, sometimes you drown in 2 inches of water or something. Yeah, you can look at that and say, yeah, it's kind of
2 inches of
2 inches of
water.
water, Tom. But most of these people don't die; they just disappear. I mean, and I was surprised, like, wow, I didn't know we had this many inventors, people who've come out and worked on this over the years to come up with devices to supposedly cheat energy, create energy when there's not supposed to be any. Couldn't get a patent. Same story. It's always the same story, same plot, and then they just disappear. You never hear from them again. It's not that you find them dead in a mysterious circumstance; they just go away.
So we're not talking about like the great African warrior leaders of the 1950s who were fighting for a unified and independent Africa, and you ended up just finding a couple of teeth left or something like
You
that, or their
find
bones
nothing,
didn't.
Tom. No
You don't find nothing.
NCIS evidence whatsoever to send to the lab. No DNA. No bone fragments. No skin. No hair. You find absolutely nothing on these people. And the one thing they all have in common is they all came, and then the devices all disappeared. Like, okay, well, if they're gone, what happened to their inventions? Where are the devices? So at least we could study and see what's going on. Well, the technology is going also. So they're gone, their inventions are gone, their labs are destroyed, and that's the end of the story. But I'll post a link to the Y file video that chronicles a lot of these incidents that we're talking about, and we'll post it for next week. Promise.
All right, good deal. Well, let's go ahead and go on to our next story, Jimmy, and we will move from there. For those of you who are not on the chat line right now, feel free to join us on the chat line. Also, if you want to call in, if you have any
The
comments.
phone line is working.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you this: which one of these phone numbers is on here? Because you know what? I think, yeah, there we go. 97249722281. Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, that is our call-in line. So if you would like to call in, you have any comments or thoughts, feel free to call in, and we will have a conversation. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get to our next storyline. I think most of you are probably aware of this. This has even hit mainstream news following an economic blackout in February. Organizers are encouraging the public to join boycotting Target. Atlanta pastor Dr. Jamal Bryant, the leading figure behind the Target Fast, and other faith leaders from around the nation are urging company executives to restore DEI-related policies. They hope that the planned 40-day boycott will force a reversal. Target isn't the only company that has rolled back these initiatives during the early months of the Trump second term, but Walmart, Lowe's, and Meta are a few other major corporations known to have reversed their policies. The 40-day boycott, organized primarily by faith leaders, protest the retailers' chain decision to reverse commitments that they had made. Basically saying the time to move with intention, redirect our spending to Black and allied businesses that reinvest in our communities. This isn't just a moment, it's a movement. And their priorities and demands are: one, honoring the $2 billion pledge that the Black business community through products and services in Black um, media buys, which is, I guess, in essence, commensurate with what they said they were going to do. I guess a few years back with the George Floyd murder, deposit 250 million among any of 23 Black banks that exist, only 23, Jimmy, completely restoring the franchise's commitment to DEI and pipeline community centers at 10 HBCUs to teach retail business at every level. So I think this started on March the 1st, Jimmy, and I think the primary target has, no pun intended, primary target has been Target, but obviously there are some other retailers that they are looking at as well.
Okay, so Tom, here's the issue with this. One, why 40 days?
Is that a rhetorical or a
That's a
question
question.
question?
Question.
It's a question because I believe it is what
How do
they
you
call
put
a
40 days
stall.
out to say, okay, we're going to do this for 40 days, and then what? Uh,
Well, it depends on what the response is during those 40 days. And from what I've been seeing in terms of potential receipts is that if they need to expand it, they expand it. Obviously, one day isn't going to do anything or make any type of statement. But with 40 days, there's a spiritual aspect to it, but then also there's a real economic aspect of it. I was reading or I was listening to a podcast that said that our community, that being the Black community, spends $12 million a day with the Target franchise. And I don't know that I can do the math in my head right now. I don't know what 12 million times 40 is, but it probably does start getting up to that $1 billion range. And so I guess what part of it I would surmise is, okay, that which you decided you were going to renege from us, we're going to have to take ourselves with the spending that we've been doing with your franchise. A commitment is a commitment.
okay. So the other thing is, oh, and I just checked, Tom. So we're going to have to use a chat line for today. The I
Okay.
can't get the phone client to log in, so I'll check it after the show.
All right, no problem. We'll go ahead and take that down. So, folks, if you have any thoughts or observations, we'll go ahead and get it on the chat line. So, as you were saying,
So
Jim.
the next question is, who does more with these stores, these outlets, than Black people? If you had to compare the purchasing power of the federal government to Black consumers.
Well, obviously, there's no comparison to the largest country by GDP in the world compared to our community. But the reality of it is, what we do know is that our community probably overspends in practically every area that we spend in probably any other group per capita.
So, which is true. So, and then with that being said, Tom, there's a good chance that if you want to stay in favor with the current administration, then you're going to have to adopt some of their policies and their belief, even if you don't believe them, even if you don't stand for it. It's just the way to get along with a government that is can be can be immature, can be petulant at times, can't hold a grudge. And so you don't want to be on the bad side of this administration because they have a way of showing you rather than just telling you. And,
I would agree.
and
I
you
would
don't
agree with
want to
that.
be the poster child for how we deal with companies who go against our policy. So the official policy of the current administration is that they don't support DEI, period. And
Correct.
so
Correct.
then they have stripped it from all the agencies in the federal government and probably agencies, companies that do business with the federal government are going to have to adopt that policy also, just like with the previous administration, who did believe in DEI. It was the opposite. That they believed in DEI, that was their policy. So you had to have a DEI program in order to do business with the federal government. So this is just cycles that happens depending on the current administration, previous administration, whichever administration you're under. Generally, if you do a lot of business with the government, you're going to adopt the policies of that administration if you want to stay in good favor, good grace.
Yeah, I mean that's a valid point. The reality of it is the Black community has never really been that much on the favorable side when it comes to economics, when it comes to our government, regardless of who is in office. I mean, when we look at the beneficiaries of what we call DEI. We have not been the primary beneficiaries of that, even though we were the byproduct of why it happened in the first place. If we look at a lot of the civil rights legislation that was inked during the 1960s, there are other communities that have overwhelmingly benefited more so than our community, and we literally died when when a lot of that legislation did happen. So, for what it's worth, I think that there are some folks within our community who are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And the reality of it is, I think we understand that we're always on the bad side of the policies when it comes to this country's economic investment. And so some people are just saying, you know what, at some point in time, we've got to make a stand. The reality of it is most of the movements within our community have come from the church. And I think this is to our point last year, finally, someone in the church community is just deciding, you know what, tired of playing nice.
Well, Tom, they're still playing softball and t-ball when the current playing field is Major League Baseball fastballs. So we have to be willing, Tom, to do what we have to do for ourselves, not for 40 days,
Agree.
not for 4 days, not for 4 months, but period. So
Agree.
there's
Agree.
a whole continent called Africa. Pick whatever country you want and just throw a dart at the map, whichever country it lands on. Tom, it wouldn't take much. We're talking $100,000 to $1 million um, to go overseas and set up a factory to make your own clothes, make your own shoes, boots, everything else that we buy from Asia now and China with those factories there. And I know this because I used to own a shirt. And I decided to go into the shirt business. I bought into a small factory in China. So Tom, and I know that people like Kanye wasn't far from our factory with his boots, and so it would always amaze me that, when our basketball celebrities are getting these $200 or $300 million deals, it's like, guys, do y'all not know that for $1 million or $2 million, you can go set your own factory and make your own tennis shoe, not just get a few hundred million, but billions, Tom, is what these tennis shoe market is worth. But yet, we'd rather be on the receiving end of somebody else's money rather than go out and do it for ourselves. And reality is that we're at the point now where other people are telling you, showing you, demonstrating to you what you're worth to them. As long as you spend your money
Correct.
with them, oh, you good. But
Well, you're worth something to them as long as you are making money for
right.
them.
But now, if you want us to stay committed to programs and things that we promise, but Tom, we may or may not be able to keep that depending on what administration is in office. The point is, we have to insulate ourselves from that. We need to just, if it's going to be a boycott of Targets and Walmart and others, then we got to be able to replace those. Put those same
Agreed. And
stores
and, I,
into our neighborhoods,
and
go to Africa where there's cheap labor also, set up our own factories, and then ship those goods here for them to take care of ourselves.
I would agree. And what actually they have done, Jimmy, is they actually on their website have made or have created a list of black businesses that people who are not going to be shopping at Target and or any of the these retailers can do business with. Now, yeah, it may cost a little bit more to do business, because they do not have the economy of scale of a Walmart who can live into submission. But the reality of it is, if you're looking at the long term strategy of this, you have no option but to be your own employee. You have no option but to be able to be your own sustainer of economic growth. And the reality of it is, you cannot depend on anybody else. And we've talked about this before. You know, many of our African countries, with the exception of a few, get all of this money from the United States and Europe, but there are always things tied to this money that they're getting that put them in a desperate situation. It's the same thing with being African in America. If you are depending on somebody else for your economy, for your jobs, for your education, then you're always going to be dependent on them in one way or another.
Yeah, Tom, and at this time, this stage, with the 1.7 and growing $1 trillion
Knock it on 2 trillion.
that we're blessed with every year from God, I would imagine that God's probably saying, get off your damn knees, get up and do something for yourself. So here's the problem, Tom, that I have with these movements. During my lifetime, I remember in high school when we had the Coca-Cola movement. We were going to boycott Coca-Cola because they didn't treat black people fairly. Well, that whole movement ended once a few black people were able to get bottling companies for Coca-Cola. So guess what? Coca-Cola still had the same practices and policies they had before. It's just now they just let a few people buy into their solution and get paid, and also that's supposed to fix our problem because not one penny of that money that they made off these bottling companies came to me whatsoever, or my community, as best I can tell. We went through the same thing with Nike, Tom. We were boycotting Nike. We're not going to buy their product. We're not. Yeah, well, Tom, that's $100 billion industry. Okay, that's fine when you flex a little bit, and then you get Nike to put a few people like Jesse Jackson and some others on their board of directors. All of a sudden, we're not boycotting anymore.
Well, that's because they get bought. You're correct. You got a you got a few folks who get bought out, whether it's Jesse Jackson, whether it's Al Sharpton or whomever it is. It's the same on the African continent. The majority, unfortunately, I won't say the majority. I would say many of their leaders are bought and sold by the Europeans before they even become heads of state, and that's where all the wealth is directed from their country to Europe.
And so,
Now,
Tom, with this movement here, my concern is once again, history has shown us how to deal with this, which is why white people in the end do not take us seriously because they know whoever organized this, if you have any impact whatsoever, if they look at their bottom line and see sales are down 1%, 3%, 5% because of this, yeah, they'll go knocking on the door, make a phone call, listen and talk. What can we do for you to end this? Not for what we can do for black people or quote unquote African Americans, but what can we do for you to end this? And Tom, that's generally where it ends.
well, that's where your grassroots initiatives. I mean, because it can't be good for one person. And I get your point, and I agree with your point. It can't be good for one or two people. I don't care what organization that they're a part of. They get their pockets lined, whether it's a minister, whether it's a grassroots leader, or whatever the case is. We have to make that decision as a community, as a culture.
Well, Tom, the one thing that we're lacking, you hit on earlier, is in our schools, we need to teach more economic development, how to pool our resources, how to take a concept or an idea and bring it to market, how to raise the money. We have to become more of a mindset that it's okay to invest your money with Wall Street, which we seem to be doing that fairly well. A lot of young people are
Yeah,
starting to get into the investment game.
whether it's in stock or crypto.
And but the other piece of that, Tom, is that pretty much everything in the world was built on a group investment.
Correct.
Just finding the new world was an investment. People invested in voyages to go out, and we turn our back and look the other way as you raid, plunder, and pillage, long as you bring the goods back for us to divvy up. And so we have to be of the same mindset, Tom. This has been recorded in history many times over that we have to do for ourselves. You have to have something for yourself that you're willing to invest in and make happen in order for it to happen. As long as we're buying into a system that was built by Europeans, by white people, I'm always amazed at how many things they come up with to make money off of. Me and the wife will be watching TV. It's like, wow, they brought that to market to make money off of, and somebody's making money off of it. It seems like so ridiculous that they can bring that product or service to market and make money off of, but they do, Tom. They find every way conceivable. While we're still doing hair care and barbecue, which is nothing wrong with hair care and barbecue, Tom, but we have to be willing to invest our money into more things: insurance, energy, exploration. And when I say invest, I mean I'm not talking about a few dollars. If you have some discretionary cash, Tom, we need to be willing to come together, examine the plans, and put our money up as venture capitalists. You may not think you have much, but like I said, I came up with the $20 a week plan just for people who don't have very much money to be able to raise a great deal of money by just getting a few million of us, 10% of us, to do this and invest in our own concepts, our own ideas to bring stuff to market for us. And if we did that, Tom, that's what would scare the bejeebers out of the industry and out of Wall Street and everyone else. I guarantee the last thing they want is to see you rising up and becoming competition where you don't need their money. You don't have to go crawling and begging to the SBA or to any other group of investors saying, "Will you please give us money so we can open up the next or barbecue stand. You have your own money time, you can do what you want.
Agreed. Got a couple of items on the chat line I want to acknowledge. We got Miss Dominique Vinings out of Atlanta. Welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining
Well,
us. I know you're very busy. We have cousin Audrey K. She had a couple of comments. The boycott is affecting small black businesses who have their products at some of these stores. Therefore, it seems to me that's not supporting black products. Another one,
true.
I think people should be free thinkers and be mindful of the people who initiate these boycotts, yet they have money pouring into their causes. So I would agree with you. There is going to have potentially some effect on folks, black or otherwise, who are going to be retailing through Target. Target is a channel. I would hope it's not the channel for those businesses. I actually know somebody personally who was retailing for a period of time through Walmart, and I'm going to tell you, it is not easy with the requirements that they have retailing with these very large chains. And so we've talked about this before. You have to start small. You have to grow. You have to be independent. And the reality of it is, if you become successful and you grow, people are going to come after you. But that is the reason that as a community and as a culture, we cannot be dependent on anyone but ourselves if we're going to find any true liberation, freedom, and economy, whether it's here or overseas.
Well, Tom, if the largest retailer in the world started out as a used book chain online,
That being Amazon.
if they can do that, Tom, then we could we can produce things and sell it for ourselves on our own site. There's nothing magical about the website for Amazon except that thing is optimized
Yep.
for sales. When I go click on Amazon, they not I don't know who owns the company. I mean, I know who owns the company, but there is you can't find his bio on there. You can't find his net worth. You can't find where he went to school. Tom, all you see is here's a deal for you, things that we've researched. Here's a return policy. Here's how you go out and buy. Whatever you search on, they have it ready to ship to you. You buy the Prime membership, and we'll give you some free shipping. Tom, that site is optimized for sales. And so when I look at some small businesses, and look at their website. They got their picture out there, where they went to school,
Where they
their
went,
alma
they got the
mater,
picture on there, Jimmy.
huh?
They got the picture on there,
They
Jimmy.
got the picture out there, Tom, where they went to school, their alma mater, all the things they do, all the stuff they give to. It's like, what exactly do you sell on this website? And the website exists to promote them as opposed to promote sales. And so there is the difference, Tom, in mindset. We have to have the mindset that we're going to become global leaders also. That we're going to do this online thing, which levels the playing field. And if we have to start small and take an example from Amazon and grow to that, but we have to be committed. That I mean, I know some folks, black folks, white folks, all different, who pretty much most of their purchases are done through Amazon. They got so many damn boxes they don't know what to do with them because Amazon Prime is being delivered every day to bring the stuff that they need. Walmart,
Amazon is one of those target companies as well.
yeah, Target, Walmart, the others got into the delivery business to compete against Amazon. You know, and that has helped subsidize their growth also. Can't beat them, join them. And so we can come together, Tom, put together a really slick website, put together supply chains and the channels necessary, and do the same to supply the things that we need for ourselves. But we have to be committed to supporting that venture mindset wise and understand that the jobs that you want for your young people are through your own business, not
Agreed.
begging other people to create a DEI hire for you because that may be good for the Biden administration, not so good during the Trump
It's
administration. We
not
don't
going to
know
happen.
what the future is gonna hold. What's going to be more of the Trump or more along the lines of Biden. But here's what we do know, Tom. If we create our own damn jobs, then we don't have to worry about administration, which administration favor us or don't favor us.
Depending on what business they're in. We got a comment from Ms. Tanya, but we can't just lie down and roll over as they expect us to. So does anyone have any better ideas how we can create a movement forward that could be effective?
Well, Tom, that's exactly what they expect for us to lay down and roll over
Yes.
because we've done it so many times before. They don't take this threat seriously. If they did, they would have already brought a suitcase full of cash and left it on somebody's door to make this thing disappear, or appointed someone board on their put them on their board of directors, or giving you a store franchise somewhere that eventually in 5 years we're going to shut it down. So they would have already done this. They understand how the game is played. They know that we're not going to follow through with this. You're talking about 40 days. Okay, we can wait this out 40 days, and then what?
It depends on your level of commitment, Jimmy. Let me be completely transparent. I have not done business with Exxon in probably 20 years. And
Okay.
that was based upon an article that I read of the hard time that they were giving actually promoting African Americans within their organization. And I haven't spent a dime, literally a dime, with Exxon in over 20 years. There is a franchise, I think it's Kentucky Fried Chicken. I haven't done business with them in probably at least 12 to 15 years. I don't remember the exact number because they kind of did the same thing as Exxon. So I would say this: start local, start where you are, be focused, be very focused. You don't have to wait for anybody
So let
else
me
to
ask
do
you
it.
this, Tom.
Say what?
Let me ask you this:
Yes.
Did you forgive Williams Chicken? You back to doing some business with Williams Chicken?
You know,
I know they're on your ban list for a minute.
that particular, I have not been to that particular location since. I have been to a Williams since then, but I have not been to that location since.
Okay,
There
okay.
was one location who rubbed me the wrong way. And, I really do try to make sure I'm spending
Tom,
90% of the
it's
day.
time to go back,
But
Tom.
that particular location,
Come
no.
on, Tom. A little forgiveness, man. It's time for you to go
I'm
back.
sure. But think about it, Jimmy. If everyone was that committed to say,
I know. You could turn things around yesterday, Tom.
this is the
That
other
was the
effect,
case.
this is the other response to Ms. Tanya's thing. You can do a direct or an indirect. My direct/indirect way of doing it is growing my disposable spend. So I mean, there are certain things I cannot control. Uh, we don't have any options in terms of water in my house. We have a few options in terms of electricity, but I don't know of any black-owned electricity companies. But when it comes to the other disposable spend that I can, what I do is I maximize the spend within our community of the things that I can control, that there are options out there. And that makes a difference when you say that you spent 10%, 30%, 40% of your optional disposable income within your community. Can you imagine if we multiplied that times almost 50 million people?
It's a huge amount of money, Tom.
And it's not a lot of money per household, but when you multiply that by almost 50 million people, and we're knocking on 50 million people in the United States, that makes an impact. We got cousin Audrey came my point exactly because some FBAs, I'm not exactly sure FBAs don't align with the leaders of these boycotts. But yeah, start at home, start locally, start in your household, start in your neighborhood, and build momentum from there. Don't try to start with the elephant. Start with the mouse, stay focused, stay disciplined, and stay committed.
Well, Tom, and plus the people you do business with need to do the same. So that's how you get the ripple effect, where $1 comes into your neighborhood, but it generates 10, 15, $20 of economic activity. Like the Asian community up in Plano, they have been touted for every dollar that comes into the area, Tom, they produce $35 of economic activity because that dollar keeps changing hands from one agent to the other before it leaves. And we know in our community that money goes just straight out, never comes back, no ripple effect whatsoever. So it's one thing to promote and support black businesses, but also lean on these same businesses that, hey, I'm supporting you because I expect you to go pay it forward and support another black business or a black person.
Okay, and to answer a question, I have eaten at a Williams Chicken in the last 10 or plus some odd years. I've just not eaten at that particular location. I don't eat Williams Chicken that often at all. But I can say that I definitely have not eaten at that location since then. But I have eaten at a Williams Chicken in the last 10 years.
Okay, Tom, let's give him a little forgiveness, man. You can go back. Give him another chance. I'm sure they've learned their lesson by now.
They
I'm
don't even know me, man.
sure they miss your business and they're ready to make some kind of sacrifice, compromise
Gotcha.
to do better.
Gotcha.
So
And we got a response from cousin Audrey, foundational Black America. But
Okay.
and I guess we've got about 5 minutes or a little bit less, so we can kind of close it out. And we can get to the other article next week. I think this has been a good conversation because,
No, very good.
but ultimately, as they say, there's an old saying that goes, "Charity starts at home,"
Yes.
and that's the beginning and the end. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody, but charity does start at home. So if you're not committed to your own freedom, your own empowerment, then I don't know what to say. I can't really have too many conversations with anybody who's not committed to home at first. Every other community that we can think of in this country or globally is committed to their own
Well,
community.
Tom, every group does it. Every ethnic group does except us. And if you read Thomas Sowell, Ethnic, his book Ethnic, he explains this. This is why, Tom, we don't have the results that other groups have. And so until we follow the same historic plan that other groups have done, take over the educational institutions of your neighborhood, the local economies, get involved with politics, especially judgeships, and you grow from there. I mean, the Italians, the Hispanics, or the Latinx, as some people call them, Tom, they're all on the same growth path.
Yeah.
And so we're being left behind in the country that we helped build and make great. And I know we feel the pinch of that. I understand. I'm not trying to downplay that we haven't done anything because we've done a great deal for this country. We wish we get a lot more out of this country, but we have to make that happen, Tom. White folks, I don't care how much you beg, how much they feel sorry for you, how much you make a case for racism and all the past aggression that they've committed towards us. In the end, Tom, they are still going to look out for their own self-interest.
I would close with this: that which we have done for others, we have to do for ourselves.
Two times, three times more so. So we made a fortune for others, so we need to now do it for ourselves. And so, Tom, if we're interested, we probably need to do a show on the finer points of my $20 a week plan to get us to freedom. And we don't need a bunch of people. We need about 10% of the Black population to buy into it. And if so, we can do that. We can raise about $1 billion a year, Tom, to free ourselves.
And the other thing I would suggest, that which we've done for others, we have to do for ourselves, is that everybody is not going to be an entrepreneur. Everybody
Right.
can be a business owner.
But everybody can be a venture capitalist.
But if you're not that person, support somebody who is.
Well, once again, if you can afford $20 a week, not your rent money, not your food money, mortgage money, car payment, but this is your going to club money, your McDonald's money, you can give up and sacrifice just a little bit and squeeze out $20 a week, Tom. If we can get 1 million of us to do this, like I said, we can crank out about $1 billion a year. Now, when we have ideas that we want to invest or rebuild, we have the money to go do that.
Gotcha. I have another comment from Miss Marion. It says, "Are there any Black communities in the U.S. that Black own and Black live, Black live?" I've been.
There are some, Tom, but not in the sense of like a Greenwood or a Rosewood.
Well, yeah, and guess what happened? The government decided they were going to completely destroy the infrastructure of that economy by using eminent domain.
I saw one Black development company in D.C. that had raised $500 million. But Tom, over 450 million of that came from the government as a form of a grant. And so when you get that much of your funding from the government, they're pretty much calling the shot. And this is money that they're supposed to be using to invest to regrow the financial infrastructure. I've only seen like one project, a grocery store, that they've actually funded. So with their $500 million, and like I said, most of it came from the government. But we have to do better, Tom. We have to raise that 500 million, $1 billion ourselves, and do more of the identifying where we have food deserts, where we need jobs created, and do it ourselves. We don't risk our own capital. Don't expect and cry about other people not doing it.
Agreed. And that is it for tonight. It is 9 p.m. We want to thank everyone who's joined us this evening. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and the narrative that we've had. We'll be back next week. We're going to have one of our entrepreneurs, Brother Gregory Harrington, come back and talk to us about business next week. So we'll enjoy having him back. And then, of course, we will get back to the grind on the following week. So Thank you, everyone. Join us next week. Put it on your calendars because Wednesday, if it's Wednesday night, Jimmy,
Certainly, Black Men Speak.
good night, everyone.